My guest this morning is Linda Miller. Linda was born to Marshall and Olive Miller in the Bronx, New York. She was raised in the third largest city in New Jersey, Paterson, New Jersey, with 3 siblings. She's the youngest of 4 siblings, Marshall, Joyce, Celestine, and Jacqueline. She's the mother of the beautiful and now 35-year-old Vanesti, and Vanesti's been on the show a couple of times as well. She's currently in her 9th year working as a speech therapist in the Jersey City Public School System, and she serves elementary students who are hearing, deaf, and hard of hearing. She received her bachelor's in communication science and disorders from right here at William Patterson University, a master's of science in speech language pathology and audiology from Northern Arizona University, and she loves anything having to do with reading, so she founded the Avid Readers Unite Book Club in 2014. That's a space on Facebook for readers of all levels to gather, share their love for reading, meet new authors, and have monthly spirited book discussions. She took it up to another level in 2021. She started her own company, Happy Reading LLC. This online company seeks to help busy professionals ignite their inner reader, and that improves wellness, mindset, and personal development that transforms the overall quality of life using reading using reading as the key. I currently she has a coaching helping busy professionals go from burnout to living out and doing the things that they love. One fun fact about Linda is she loves having fun. On a good day, you'll find her dancing to music, eating a good meal, at the airport, or curled up with a book. Welcome to the Reading Circle microphones, Linda Miller. Linda, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm like, who was he talking about? Oh, he's talking about you?
You know what? I go through that same experiences when folks either write me a letter of recommendation or they introduce me. I kind of had that same feeling like it's something to hear about yourself from somebody saying it or either reading it on paper rather. It is. It really is. So how are you doing?
I am doing great this morning. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you. And you are my first guest of this new year here on the Reading Circle with Marc Medley. And I'm thrilled because Linda and I were talking at the end of the year, and I was having various local guests on. And I would reach out to her about something. She says, I'd love to come back on the show. And I was great. I'd love to have you. So as it turns out, when I was putting my schedule together for this year, Linda was the first person I thought of who I wanted to be the first guest of 2023, particularly since her emphasis is on reading and this show is on reading. So, all right, let's go all the way back to the beginning, Linda, because I know where my love for reading began. But I want to hear about kind of like where for you, because I always say it's rare, but maybe it's not as rare as I think it is, or maybe I exaggerate, but I just don't think that many people are into reading. But at the same time, there's probably more into reading than I think it is. I always talk about when I go to Barnes & Noble how I don't see anybody in there, particularly black people, but every now and again I do see. But where did this whole thing for reading for you begin?
It began for me when I was very young. My house was of readers. My parents read. They read the newspaper. They read church materials. If they were in a different part of the church, leading, they bought a book on it, and they read about it. But then they also had, other books. My mother liked Harlequin, and I would look and see what she was reading. When she wasn't looking, I would see, oh, she's reading that? Oh, okay, let me check that out. And my father, I learned about Donald Goins and Iceberg Slim. When he wasn't looking, okay. But no, we grew up with a house of reading, and then we had the Britannica encyclopedias in the house. You remember those? They would come knocking on your door.
I sure do.
They would sell the encyclopedias door to door. So we had those for, the adults, and then we had the children's book as well. So I was reading those too. But in my house, really, like, if you would say you were bored, it was about get a book. Get a book, read a book, you know, instead of saying that you were bored. So I grew up with just reading. But then my love, I read, I think it was Agatha Lansbury or Agatha Christie. That's what it was. I read one of her books, and then I don't know. It was just something about that mystery that I read, and then it just took off from there.
Well, I tell you what, you're absolutely, and it's funny that you were talking about the encyclopedias because the kids of today have no idea what you're talking about when you say encyclopedia, when you say dictionary, when you say anything that's a book, because that wonderful thing when and you're younger than I am, but that wonderful thing when we were growing up called Google was not in existence, at least not for regular consumers. It might have been for the government, it might have been for the military, but it was not in existence, not for us. So you're right. There were folks that went around selling encyclopedias from door to door. And it would be like, you would get these encyclopedias, folks that are not as old as Linda and I, and like I said, Linda's younger than me, but it was this big, like, you would have the A volume, they might have AB. And then the next book might be CD. And because they were in alphabetical order and they were all topics. They were all, any topic you could possibly think of. Matter of fact, the concept of Google and search engines probably came from these encyclopedias. The only thing is, right, you had to thumb through the book in alphabetical order to find whatever topic you were looking for. All right. And that same thing, like, you know, and Linda, you would have noticed because, you know, you're a reader. When you go to the library, we had the card catalog. Kids don't know what they are today either. You go to the library, you pull all these little drawers out in alphabetical order to find the title of the book that you want.
Exactly.
See, this is kind of like the history, you know, again, for the kids who are clueless as to what we went through in order to be able to read, because all they literally have to do now, if they're on a computer, is go to a search engine. And Google usually is the one, but I'm not knocking Bing or, you know, what the other ones are, but Google is usually the popular one. They go in there into the search box, keyword, and anything that's ever written on that particular topic just pops up in front of them. All right. Kids, for any kids who are listening, parents, it was not like that for me and Linda. Like she said, those encyclopedias, we had to thumb through those to find whatever topic we were looking for.
And we still have them in the house.
You know what? Had it not been for my various moves, because I know in my mother's house, they were still there as well. I remember, I can sit here and see them as we're talking about them. I remember their color. I remember where they sat on top of the mantle.
Yes.
Everything.
They're still in the home. They're still in the home.
So, you know, it's interesting that you say you saw, and again, this is, we're talking reading here, folks, and this is how you generate an interest for your children. And Linda her way of coming by reading was the same way I came by reading. All right. Parents modeled it and encouraged it. So as a child, and when they would say, all right, if you're bored, get a book, what was your reaction?
Why? I don't want to, but I would do it anyway. I wanted to do something else, but, you know, I had to go get a book and read. I didn't like it in the beginning, but then, like I said, once I found a book that kind of sparked my interest, then I was always reading.
Oh, that's another key word there, too. You said sparked your interest.
Right.
Because whenever I was doing my second master's degree, yes, it was the MEd. Yes, it was that master's degree. Mm-hmm. I did my action research on would kids read more if they had the opportunity to self-select their books compared with what the school system said, you must read this. And they had to track, as a part of the research, they had to track their reading times. They had reading logs, and we had to put down the name of the book, the self-select book compared with the book that the school said you had to read. And sure enough, the research came out exactly what I thought it was going to come out to. The kids did read more of something they were interested in. So if they got a chance to pick the book, they read it more and longer than if we said, you're going to read The Scarlet Letter.
Right. Right, because we're not looking at the interest of them. We're looking at, okay, this is the topics that they told us that we have to use, and this is what you're going to read. So why can't we just change it up?
Right. And I have a book that I'm going to recommend to you. I just started reading it with my team of teachers at the school. It's called Literacy is Liberation, Working Toward Justice Through Culturally Relevant Teaching. And the author is Kimberly N. Parker. I read chapter 1 yesterday and I said, oh yeah, she's spot on. And some of the things that we were just talking about in terms of forcing particular topics, and I mean, that's what she's chapter 1 starts off with. Matter of fact, I used the Scarlet Letter because when I was teaching 8th grade, that would always be the last book I did before the kids graduated. And it's funny enough, she referenced that same book in her book, in Literacy is Liberation. Because what she's saying is what we do is we force feed kids with authors who don't look like them, and then wonder why they don't want to read it. You know, the books that we force feed them on are not their experience. It's not something they relate to, so forth and so on. So that's kind of like in chapter 1 where she's gone. But she lists all these different books, like Macbeth, so forth, like all these different books that are considered, quote unquote, the classics. And we try to force kids to read, and then we wonder why they're not reading.
Exactly. You have to find out. Even like now in my speech sessions, I use literacy all the time. But now what I've been doing, I look at my caseload. I look at, the demographics, and I try to find books that relate to them, that maybe they could see themselves in.
Absolutely.
So I can get better reaction, and it's like something that they can relate to a little bit, and even asking the parents, like, what kind of authors do you guys are you interested in? Those kind of things, because we want it to relate and we want it to have a bigger impact on them. It's not about me, it's about you.
Right. But see, if more school systems or more teachers or more administrators would think that way, that I believe personally, this might be my opinion, but I believe they would get a different result. And based on my action research some years ago, back in 2003, somewhere around in there, I did that research. I honestly believe they would get a different result rather than, okay, the curriculum said we must cover this book. And some districts have, gotten better and they've moved closer to what we're talking about. But then others are still like tied to they must read these particular books.
Exactly.
All right.
There's so many different books you can choose from.
Yes. And so, it's interesting because and it's interesting because it was two of us. It was me and my sister. It was only two of us. My sister hates to read. She doesn't, so she did not pick up on the modeling of my dad. My dad, every day when he'd come home, change clothes, make sure he had his cold glass of water, go sit up in the living room, and he would read either the newspaper, Ebony, or Jet. And he would sit there and read, or either a book like the autobiography of Malcolm X. I remember that one. I remember there was the spook who sat by the door. There was a film, just like you said. And so for me, because that's what he was doing, and I wanted to be like my dad, I started doing the same thing. And then lo and behold, I really started loving to read. Just the information that was taken in, the knowledge that we get, so forth and so on. And so I developed a passion for it just as you did. Now, let's talk a little bit about how did that now shape what you ultimately did for a career choice? Because you're working with deaf and speech and so forth and so on. How did your love for literacy and reading impact your career choice?
Well, I can do more things. You can teach more. You can teach go a little deeper with the book. You can show more, get more comprehension skills. Because ultimately, I want them to be able to communicate. And I want them to be able to listen to a story, read the story, whether it's visually, if I'm working with my deaf students, is visually. So I want them to be able to grasp the concept of what's happening in the story and then give it back to me. Because that's what I want to ultimately have them do in the classroom. Because for me, they're just doing, this a snapshot of what's going to happen in the classroom. So I'm trying to teach them a skill, and I think reading is fun. So I try to share that with them, and that maybe, and hopefully that they will want to pick up books. Because in both schools that I'm in, they do encourage that. They encourage the students going to the library, especially when they're younger. They encourage them to go to the library, pick out books. And sometimes, a few times, I've seen the kids come from the library. I picked them up from the library. And I'm like, well, which book did you pick? So that was the book that we used for the session.
Well, you know what's interesting? Was you said reading is fun.
Yes.
If we could get that concept across, because, I'm principal at an all-boys school. Okay. And boy, if we're a few minutes late for a gym period or something, they have a fit. Mr. Medley, we have gym. And I told him, I said, you know what? I wish you would get that excited if we were a few minutes late for your language arts class. Mr. Medley, I'm missing language arts. Mr. Medley, I'm missing math. Mr. Medley, I'm missing... I wish you would get that same kind of excitement that you have because we're a few minutes late for your gym class.
Yes. Exactly.
So
I think we have to do a better job of it. Like, I like to act out the books. If we are able to act it out, we act it out. That way you're still having fun. We're getting the material, and I'm also working on the goals that I have set for you.
And you know what?
They don't realize what they're doing.
Right. In 2023, and there are so many alternatives now. Now, for me, and I, years ago, I honestly did not think I was going to like the digital books. But that's pretty much all, for the most part. Predominantly now, 90% of what I read is on my iPad on the Kindle.
Okay.
All right. I didn't think I was going to like that because I always, everywhere I went, and I still do it. And one of the reasons I do like it is because of the convenience of it. It's like I have like almost now 2,000 books. There's probably 1,500, somewhere around there, on the Kindle. So my iPad goes wherever I go. Wherever I go, my iPad goes. So I always have a book on hand. Now, prior to the Kindle and the iPad, back in, old school days, I always had a bag of books with me. Matter of fact, there's a young lady who listened to this show, Valerie. She nicknamed me Bob. And I'd say, Valerie, why do you keep calling me Bob? My name is not Bob. My name is Mark. And she says, no, I call you Bob because you're always talking about you carry a bag of books with you. So I say, bag of books. B-O-B. So she started calling me Bob for bag of books because I got that concept from reading about Martin Luther King Jr. There was one of the books I was reading with him. It said Martin never ever went anywhere without a bag of books.
Same here.
And after I read that, I said, there again, modeling. I'm like, I am not going to go anywhere without a bag of books. Hence the invention of the Kindle and the iPad and all that kind of stuff. So, I have at least, because I'm like addicted to I have so many books on my Kindle that has the new banner on there that I haven't even opened yet. And if a title comes up, I immediately go to Amazon and download it into the Kindle because at some point I said I'm going to read it. I don't know when, but at some point. But I'm literally addicted to like downloading books now. That's like at least once a day I download a book because the digitals are like $2.99, $3.99.
Okay.
15 or whatever. Okay. But literally daily, I download at least one book. So, but I'm saying all that to say back to your commentary about reading is fun. Yeah. That's where we have got to get to, and we have to get young and old to understand it, because the bottom line is this. If you cannot read in 2023, you are not going to be able to function in life.
No. Not at all. Hence, that's why I also tutor. So, to help those who may want to learn how to read, to enjoy that, aspect of life. Because reading is everywhere. Even if it's a symbol, you still have to know what it means.
Well, this is the thing. Even with all this technology, and we were laughing about the difference between Google and encyclopedias and all that good stuff. Even with the technology, you have to be able to read, interpret, input, and comprehend what it's telling you to do. Case in point, on Thursday, I had to go to the doctor. And I input, now this is the thing with the GPSs. They've gotten to the point now where if you put in an address, it'll pull up the same address in various cities.
Right.
So you have to be very careful in terms of your reading to make sure you're putting in the address in the city that you're going to. I made that, and I can read. I made that mistake on Thursday morning where I put in the wrong city. Right street address, but wrong city. So I wound up off course. I wound up at the street address, but the wrong city. And thank God, like there was like a town or two over. It wasn't like I was that far out of the way because it was only 2 towns over. But my point was, okay, I know how to read and made that mistake. How does somebody who don't know how to read function?
They depend on other people. And that's really not living a full life.
No, that's absolutely, and that's a lot of depending on people. I mean,
right,
because everything we do. Now, Linda and I go to the same church. We have the same pastor. And one of the things he says, which I totally agree with, is the shame is not in not knowing how to read. The shame is in you not getting the help.
Right, not asking. Right. Because there's different reasons why people may not be able to read. So you can't knock people because you don't know until you talk with them. But then if there's an opportunity, like we offer tutoring at the church, so it's free.
Right.
Even for the folks who in the church, we should be running over.
Right.
It should be running over, but it's not. But hopefully, it'll catch on. But we're there to service for those who want it.
No, again, and I'm going to repeat that line again. if for whatever reason, if you're in the listening audience and either you or one of your relatives or somebody you know do not know how to read, please understand, because it's not about judgment. No. It's not about judging you. The shame is not in not knowing how to read, because as Linda just said, there's a lot of reasons why folks don't know how to read. I mean, depending on how old you are and what time frame you grew up in, you may or may not have been able to finish school. If you're African American, depending on how old you are, they may not even have taught you, because at one point, and Linda knows this as well, at one point we could get killed for trying to learn how to read.
Yes.
So, again, there's many reasons as to why someone may not know how to read, but then at the same time, there is so much help out there. Right. And for you to just sit there and not know how to read because you're ashamed or whatever, get beyond that little bit of shame of asking somebody, can you help me? I need to understand, because in the long run, you are going to come out the better for it. Because I'm just like, I saw in your bio about they'll find you at an airport as a fun fact.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I go down to Newark Airport relatively frequently, either having to pick somebody up or either driving down there myself because I'm going somewhere. The signs that come at you so quickly when you're driving down there, arrival, departure, all the various airlines, parking, long-term, short-term, everything is coming up at you very fast. And again, my mind is always kind of on the reading thing. I'm like you. So what always kind of goes through my mind is, what does somebody who doesn't know how to read as they're coming through here do?
Right. They're stuck.
Yeah, they are.
They're stuck, and you're calling them like, where are you? Where are you? I've been waiting. And they're still circling because they don't know where to get up.
I hate to laugh, but it's just the way that you say it. They're stuck. They are. Folks, please, we admonish you that if you don't know how to read, please find somebody like Linda, or by the end of the show, she can let you know how to get in touch with her, or somebody else, or a teacher, or online, or something. Because the other thing we have is audiobooks. That's another thing that we didn't have.
I just started doing that a year ago. My eyes were hurting a lot. And one of my good girlfriends, she said, well, why don't you try Audibles? I tried it and I like it. And I'm the person who likes to, turn the pages and feel the book. I'm still that person. But then I try Audibles and I love it. And I've actually read more with Audibles, on top of reading, my live book. So I started that. So I love it. I like Audibles now.
All right. See, Audible is probably going to be for me the same way I thought I wouldn't like the Kindle. Audible is probably going to be that way for me, because I've listened to a couple of books on Audible, and I was kind of like, okay. And it's great if I had a long commute, because my commute is so short. I mean, my commute is 11 minutes. But even, I guess if I tried it, I could. But I guess I could listen to a little bit in 11-minute time frame. I could. But I remember back in the day, I had an hour commute. Now there, I would definitely be able to do it. I mean, if I was commuting from Basking Ridge back to the Patterson area or the Hackensack area, wherever, I could definitely do it. But it's like my commute is so short now that by the time the book would get on, I'd be where I'm going. And but it is another alternative to be able to listen to the book.
Right, because that's the thing. Some people I'm so busy, or I don't have time. I don't have time to pick up a book. So I have like you said, another way to do it. While you're going for your walk, while you're going for your drive, while you're going for a run, put the book in. It's audible. It's in your ears. You're listening to music anyway.
Right.
So there's no excuse. So I found another alternative for you, instead of just saying, well, I just don't have the time to read a book. I'm just so busy. Well, you have to make time, because guess what? If you start reading and doing these things, it can help you in your life. It can help you with that stress that you have going on.
That's right. Because you know what? That's another interesting point. And I know a part of your business, and we're going to talk about that shortly, is the whole notion of mindfulness and changing lives and so forth and so on. But reading for me is very relaxing.
Yes.
So not only is it fun, it is also relaxing.
Right. You get to just, just relax. Your whole body just falls into what you're reading.
No, you're right. Because see, for me, I okay, most of my books I'm reading are informational and I really love biographies and autobiographies. Because for me, I love the behind the scenes. I know what we see, but usually when folks write their books, you get a chance to really understand what they felt like, what they were saying. I really love to read biographies of presidents because they get into what they were doing and feeling in the White House. And because, you know, when we see them on camera, they all smiling and happy and God bless America, yada, yada, yada. But when they write their books, they tell you exactly when they went back in the White House, how they threw something or cursed somebody out or kicked this or did that. They usually chronicle that in their books. So I love reading the behind the scenes stuff.
I think a couple of years ago, I started getting into reading books like that, autobiographies and biographies. Before, I was like, I don't want to read that. It's boring. But then I realized after I read a few books, I'm like, oh, no, this is really good. So now, you know, I've embraced those type of books. So I read everything.
Exactly. No, I'll tell you, Obama's book is funny as I know, because you know Obama's always smiling, always. But he talks about how he would get back in the White House and blow somebody out, or he would tell. I thought that was the stupidest idea in the world. Whatever he was saying, he would put it in the book of what he told somebody. One of the advisors, or vice president, or him and Joe Biden was talking, or him. So it's all, you know, like I said, those kind of books I really love. Just to hear what is going on behind the scenes. You know, so right, it can be relaxing, it can be informative, it can be fun. If you've just joined us, my guest this morning is Linda Miller, and we are opening the year talking about what this show is about, which is reading. Now, I hope you've been with me since 6, but I certainly hope you've been with me since 7, since Linda and I started talking on this interview, because Linda, like myself, is another one that has a passion for reading. And it's one thing to have a passion for something that does not necessarily change your life. And it's another thing to have a passion for something that totally changes your life. Because we were giving you examples of not really being able to function well if you can't read or if you don't read well. Now, Linda, you deal with a population in the school system that requires a lot of patience. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, they all require patience. So I work with hearing students. I work with deaf and hard of hearing students as well. So I work with the gamut. I'm in elementary school, so I work from K to 8. And really working with them, trying to help them communicate better. Some of the students, they can't read. Some of the students, they have difficulty with reading, so we have to find different ways for them to understand the information. And a lot of my work is around vocabulary. And in reading, you have to know vocabulary. So we do that prior to the story so that they get an understanding of what is happening, what is the meaning of things, so they can have a better experience. You know, you can't just show up with a book and just think that the kids are going to get it. It depends on what their household is about. They may not get what you're talking about. So breaking down the vocabulary and having them understand that first, and then putting it in context into the story. And a lot of times we act out things so that they get a better understanding. And a lot of the students, they have grasped to what I'm doing, and they enjoy it. And sometimes they're like, oh, can we read that book again? And they want to choose the same book that we read, because repetition is key for my students. You know, you may get a little bit bored, but the students, if it's about, because it's about them, and you pick something and that grasps their attention and they want to read it again, well, then we do it again, because then their comprehension skills go up. And then I, you know, confer with their teachers, like, how are they doing? You know, are they getting things in class? So, yeah, it does take patience, but you have to kind of go outside of the box to get it done.
No, you know what? And again, each time, and this is the way the show works for me, because I generally don't work off a question list. My questions are derived from the responses the guests give. So Linda's giving some wonderful responses in terms of what we're talking about in terms of reading. She said vocabulary. Now, this is the thing that I don't know about in Jersey City, but I know we have done it in Patterson, where we've taken out the basics and then wonder 7 to 10 years down the road why the kid doesn't know the basics. Which is okay. So it's like it's amazing to me how you remove the basic skills. You like, we can't do, not phonics, not vocabulary, not, handwriting did kind of make its way. I mean, penmanship and cursive made its way back in quasi. And then, so we took out telling, analog, time. We took out the basics. And then 5-7 years down the road, when the kid doesn't know the basics, then we all get questioned, how come the kid don't know the basics? Well, you took them out of the curriculum. So to get around that, I usually say, you know what? Yeah, I get it, but we're going to teach the basics. So I walked into a classroom the other day, and the vocabulary word the teacher was teaching was acquaintance. Like, great. We did a whole thing on the word acquaintance. And the next one was complimentary. C-O-M-P-L-E, not L-I. But since we were on the P-L-E, I said, you know what? In the English language, we do some strange things. There's another word that sounds just like it. The only difference is it's an I in there instead of an E, and they mean two different things. All right. So we exploded those two words, complimentary and complimentary. And then the next word, I think, before I left, she gave the word jumbled. So I tried to help the students understand, look, we're not just going over these words to be going over. You need to start using them as you talk to people. As you, in your conversations, let's move away from the little baby words and start using bigger words such as, that's an acquaintance of mine. Those chords over there are really jumbled. In terms of complimentary, you know what, that scarf and hat that he has on or she has on really is complimentary. You know, so we talked about that whole thing. But there are components to reading as well. And I heard you say a couple of them. One was the comprehension. And that's where my kids struggle the most. Because there's decoding, there's comprehension, there's fluency. All of that goes into reading. So even if you do just one, most of Mr. Medley, I can read. Well, you can decode, and even that's debatable. And so, but then it's like, okay, well, what did the author say? What did you get out of that? That's whenever I get the duh. All right? Because even though they've called words, they don't understand what the words meant. Now, the other piece of that, and this is where it all connects, and, you know, listening audience this morning, we're going to school on reading. That's what we're doing.
Yes.
Even if you cannot decode and you're struggling on a word, you get to a word that you do not know and you sit there for 5 to 10 minutes trying to figure that one word out. There is no way in the world you're going to comprehend the paragraph because all of your energy went to trying to figure out that one word. And if you have to do that 2 or 3 times within the paragraph, there's no way you can understand what the author was trying to tell you.
Exactly. Because you forgot everything.
Yep. Bingo. You forgot if you even got it because, like you just said, you're focused so much on that 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 words you didn't know.
Right. Exactly. So, and sometimes when I'm working with my deaf students, I have to think about the signs we're using because sometimes it's the same sign, but it's a different word meaning. So you have to figure out how to really get them to understand, especially if their vocabulary skills are low. You know, I have to try to figure out how to teach them differently. So that's also a skill that I have to, incorporate when I'm working with those students to bring up their vocabulary to make sure their signing skills are up as well.
There is, and again, because of this wonderful thing called Google, because of search engines, I'll look it up before our interview is over. But there is a certain, and Linda might know it, there's a certain number of words that research says a child should have by certain ages or by certain grades. I think it was like in kindergarten, it was 3,000 or something. I have to look it up to be accurate. Yeah. But it was like
by 2, you should have like 2,000 words.
Okay. There you go. This is what we're doing. In many cases, in many of our, and this is why in a conversation like what Linda and I are having this morning is so important. And goes back to what we were saying about in the home. Our parents, as they birth children, need to start talking to them in real talk. Not baby talk, as soon as possible. Because there are some adults today who are still talking baby talk because that's all their parents talked to them in when they were children.
This is true.
They're still not pronouncing words correctly. They're pronouncing them, like Linda just said, in baby talk. Grown people, adults, still mispronouncing words the way they were told to them in baby talk.
Yes. That's doing them a disservice.
It is. It really is. With my 2 girls, I literally read to them when they were in their mother's womb, when they were in the womb. Linda, they had this, and again, I'm big in mail order and goofy products and this, that, and the other. But we was looking through one of the baby magazines at the time, and they had this thing called a pregaphone. That was the name of the product. It was called Pregaphone. Okay. And Pregaphone was a rubber, had like a tube on it, had this little mouthpiece looking like thing on one end, and it had this like plunger looking like thing on the other end that you could put over the mother's stomach and you can talk into it. Well, me and my crazy mail order loving self, I ordered it. And so when we got it, I started literally putting that on Jeannie's stomach, and I would talk through it. So both of my girls were read to, Aria and Niara were read to when they were in the womb. Okay? And so in terms of when they came out and in terms of us conversating with them, we always conversated with them in regular talk, not baby talk.
Right, exactly. Exactly. I mean, you may do a little of that, but then, you got to stop it.
Right.
You can't do that too long. I mean, we all have done it, but you don't want to stay there too long. You want to talk regularly, especially when they're really understanding what's going on. They hear your voice because as they begin to talk, they imitate you.
Right.
So you want them to sound like, you.
Exactly. And see, this is the interesting thing about what we were going back when we were both talking about reading being modeled in the home. If you now get a set of parents who didn't have too much for school to do when they were young and they really hate reading too, that's going to be passed on to the children. Yeah. Because reading is not going to be encouraged, it's not going to be modeled, it's not going to be seen by the child, and they're not going to care about it either. Hence, when they do get to the school, we have to help them understand, like Linda said, reading is fun. Like, get you a book, because all of my boys, they love basketball and football. So I said, all right, there's nothing stopping you from reading books about basketball and football.
Exactly. Just start where you're interested.
Yes.
And that way you can gravitate to it because then you're going to want to read more because, I like this. It's interesting to me. Okay, can I get another book like this?
That's absolutely right. So I tell you what, let's talk a little bit. Let's move into when you started the Facebook page back in 2014. Avid, and I remember when you started it too, Avid Readers Unite Book Club. Let's share with the audience what that's all about, how they can get to it and access it and be a part of it. Let's talk a little bit about that. Okay,
well, you can just type it in on Facebook because we handle it through Facebook. You can log in and just say you want to be a part of the group. Just type in the Avid Readers Unite Book Club on Facebook and, ask that you want to join, answer the questions, and then you can get invited in. I started it because I used to go to Clifton Library for their book club, and I enjoyed going there because it was former teachers, professors in there. So they had me reading books that I'm like, what are we reading about? So they kind of stretched me in my reading choices because we all, you pick a book. Everyone has the opportunity to pick a book. It's not just about who's running the group. So everyone has the, opportunity to do that. And that's the same way with my book club. Everyone who's participating, you have the opportunity each month to say what you want to read. And that's what we do. So it came to a point where the weather was bad or my car wasn't working. I couldn't get to the book club. And then I said, well, you know what? I can do a book club right there online. That way I can be home in my house. I don't have to worry about getting there. I don't have to worry about weather. And that's where the book club was born.
And so again, it's on Facebook and it's Avid, A-V-I-D. And we're going to do this again at the end of the interview. Linda will have the opportunity to promote all of that. But it's Avid, A-V-I-D, Readers Book Club, and it's on Facebook. How is, because I remember signing up for it, and how is the interaction? Or is it still going? Is it still up and running? Do you all still have the discussions?
Well, I'm there discussing. It's kind of tapered off and on, but I was encouraged by my daughter to keep doing it.
Right.
Keep doing it. Like people, they'll, say things and they'll, like, or they'll add, to the conversation a little bit. But, I get it. Some people get busy and then you can't do it anymore. Or, sometimes people started because they wanted to build up the club. They knew me. I'll just be a part of it, but I really want participants in the group because, we've had really good discussions in the club. So, but I'm going to keep going. And more people have recently joined and I'm looking forward to that. So I haven't given up.
Well, even after this interview, the hope is somebody, because folks get a chance to listen from all around the country, all around the world, and Facebook is all around the country, all around the world. So those of you who are in the listening audience, when, we're promoting it right now, but we're going to promote it again. You can join and be a part of what we're talking about, the Avid Readers Book Club on Facebook. And I was asking her about the, how's it going and everything, because I know for me, like, I'm come see, come saw with Facebook. I'll go blitz on Facebook and then all of a sudden disappear. It's like, and so I've been like in disappear mode for the last couple of weeks or so. So I'll go in and I'll blitz, and then other times I'll just come back off. I've lost my taste for Facebook for a while, and I get back off. Now, while we're on that point though, I do, even when I'm in disappear mode, I will promote shows. I will promote the show. Now, when I put your show up, I got a bunch of hits on Facebook. So when I put the promo out on Facebook about this morning, I was getting all kinds of commentary back and links and what do they call that whenever they tags and all that kind of stuff. Right. I was getting all that stuff. Okay, good. Now, I hope all those tags and links and comments, I hope it results in folks listening this morning.
Yes, because it's a community. It's a safe space. It's a community where we read and we talk, whether you like the book, you don't like the book, or the characters. So, I love spirited discussions because, that's building a community of like-minded people focused on reading. Because then as adults, you want to do more. You want to read more. You want to engage. Because a lot of times, a lot of people are looking for community.
Right.
Looking for places where they can share and bond. And, with COVID, a lot of that, went away a little bit.
Oh, boy, did it.
Right.
Oh, boy, did it.
On the computer, like a lot of people just disengaged altogether. You know what I mean? Because that affected a lot of people, tremendously. So this is still a space that I didn't want to go away. You get kind of like, oh, no one's really participating. But I would read the book. I would share what the book was about. And I always offer, okay, so the next month, the next book, what do you want to read? I keep doing it because I think it's important. It's important to me and those who signed up. Believe it was important to you. That's why you signed up.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm glad. And we're going to continue to push it. But like I said, whenever I put your promo out there for this morning, I was getting all kinds of likes and hits and tags and commentary. It's like, okay, all right. Because like I said, I've been blind on Facebook the last couple of weeks other than to promote the show. And so when I went back out there and put that out there, I was getting a bunch of you. And I know you texted me and said you had shared it, and that's why I said keep on sharing it. Get it out there, let folks know, because I want them to hear your interview this morning. Because again, reading, I remember again as a kid we had Riff is still around. Reading is fundamental. It is.
Yes.
No, you will not be as successful in any other subject as you could be if you're not being able to read and comprehend. One of my math teachers says this all the time. He said, the reason my students are struggling in math is because predominantly what we do now are word problems. They can't decipher and comprehend what the word problem is asking them to do.
Yes.
Again, that's reading.
It's difficult. I'll ask my teachers, I'm like, so what vocabulary are you working on? What are you working on? Okay, give me what you're working on so then I can, use it in a different way, but that way they're exposed to it again.
Absolutely.
Because we have to work together. We're working together to build the student up.
Yes.
So that they can be able to do what they need to do, get the skill that they need when they're with me in a small setting, and then when they go back into the bigger setting, which is the classroom, they can operate, where at some point they no longer need me because they got it.
Right. And see, you just said something else that was interesting as well. In other words, you go into a job looking to work yourself out of a job. And what I mean by that is not getting, let go by the school district, but for each child that you serve, I go in there with the mindset of I'm working so that you don't have to work with me at some point.
Yes. That's the object. That's the object of this thing.
Yes. It is. That's what I go like, and most of the time, like, in Linda's capacity, you're looking to cycle kids in and out. You don't want them there forever. That's the whole point is not to have a child have to go to Linda forever.
No, that's not the point.
Right.
That's not the point.
So yeah, she's literally looking for the most part to work her way out of a job or work her way out of serving a certain kid and take on the next kid. Again, without and I've gotten my hand slapped on this I don't know how many times, because we always have reading specialists in our buildings, and we're limited to the number of students we can serve based on how it's funded. And I think that's the stupidest thing going. It's like, I got a building full of kids who can't read, and you're telling me I can only send 2 to the reading specialist? So that's when I always kind of go up against and break the rules, and they just slap my hand. I'm like, okay, whatever, but I need kids who can read. This is not about Linda and I just trying to push our passion on you.
Right.
We are trying to help you understand the importance of reading and how it impacts your overall life. When we start talking about making a difference in somebody else's life, one of the biggest differences we can make in somebody's life is helping them to be able to read. And Linda does that. Like she said, at our church, she's the person that, regardless of your age, I don't care if you're 90 or 9, if you cannot read, Linda will work with you in terms of helping you get there. And lives have been changed, because they have said it. They have testified to how their life has changed because they learned how to read.
Yes. Yes.
I know some of the people that Linda has worked with. I know their ages. And again, there's no shame in the game. If you don't know how to read, get the help. All right. Sometimes I will walk in Barnes and Noble because I go in there and lose my mind, but I will walk in there and just kind of go in there just to see who's in there. This was prior to COVID. Like, it's COVID now, so but I would walk in there just to kind of observe. Let me see how many people are in here. Let me see what parents and kids are in here. Let me see the ethnicities. Let me see the races. Let me see the breakdown. Let me see who is in here. Because they're, hopefully buying books, not in there for the cheesecake. But now there's another piece of it, because, that was in 2014 with Avid Readers. But then in 2021, you took it up a notch. You actually opened and started your own company, Happy Reading LLC.
Yes.
What's that all about?
Well, it's a company focused on wellness. So using reading as the key and the tool, so the principles of reading, of what reading can do for you. I use that to help you improve your overall quality of life. So, for example, let's say, I'm stressed and I can't, things are going on. I can show you and teach you how to incorporate reading into your life so that you can de-stress. You can get focused. Like for me, I like to use reading as to focus on something. If I can't focus, or if I can't read, something's going on, I need to deal with that. But that helps me focus on what I need to get done. I'll read a chapter, I'll read a book, and then I can go on and do what I need to get done. So that's how I can incorporate that for you.
And how's that been going? Because I remember when she first, because I was at 1 minute considering starting an LLC, and probably one day in the future I might. Right now I really don't have the need for it.
We were supposed to get back to that conversation.
Right. And in terms of, like, I really, after researching and what LLC is all about, I really don't have a need for it at the moment. But at some point, when I do start my own business, consulting or whatever, I will. So when Linda first had put out there that, I immediately said, what's the LLC all about? What'd you have to do? So forth and so on. So how's it going in terms of, like, generating business and the promotion of it and getting people to understand what it is, so forth and so on?
Well, recently I worked with a client and do my program, Get Your Life Back into Balance, so that you can enjoy your fun and leisure time. And she was working through some things, and I helped her kind of get her life back on track and also incorporate fun, because she wasn't doing fun and leisure because she was she was real busy. And she was so busy that, work was coming home was going to work, everything was like a mishmash. But we worked through her goals and what she wanted. She was clear on what her goals were, and we worked through it. We had a strategic plan and how to get from point A to B to C. And then now she recently talked to me and said that she's using the principles that we worked through, and she's still working on them, and she's still enjoying that fun and leisure time because she finally was able to put herself on the schedule. And which before me, she wasn't able to really do that, not effectively.
So that sounds like you're a life coach.
Right.
Okay, so that's
part of it. So that's a part of it. And
so that's interesting, because you're a life coach, but you're using reading as the foundation.
Right. Just like the principles of it, Right. Like I saw this with my older sister before she passed away, maybe like a year or so before we didn't know she was going to leave us. But anyway, she had a lot of health challenges, and she was my first book club. She was my first book club. My other sisters read as well, but she was my direct book club. We would always, compete with each other,
right,
read things and talk about things. But, she had some health challenges which affected her memory at some point. And then she was in so much pain, she would just focus on her pain, period. And then she wouldn't pick up a book. So then my one sister said, well, we got to get her to do something to kind of encourage her to do more than just worry about what she's actually going through, to take her mind off of it, And I said, well, we can try. So every day I would go visit, because we was all working with her, with the care. And I said, well, I would always bring a book over to the house. And, she would go, well, what you reading? But I would never ask her to pick up a book. So then one day she got her book off the shelf and she brought it to the living room. So, we always encourage her to come out to the living room and, be with everybody. And then she did it for 1 week. She would just pick up a book and just bring it with her. She didn't open it. And then all of a sudden, the next week, she started opening up the book. She started reading the book. And in that time, her mood changed. She started reading. She was understanding what she was reading. She was able to, we was talking about the book, the characters, and she got happier. And so I saw a change in her mood, her energy, her ability to participate in the conversation, her comprehension, and she just became happier. And to the point where she didn't want to watch videos anymore. She would just turn on the music, have her book open. And I'm just like, this thing about reading, like she went back to a love that she had years ago. And I'm like, this is it. And then like the vision for this, because it expanded beyond the book club, because I kept getting ideas for different things. And I'm like, okay, God, we're going beyond the book club.
Right.
And when I saw, because it worked for me as well, but when I saw it happen with someone else and I'm watching it, and I really saw her mood change, and we all noticed the mood change, where she wanted to go to the bookstore. She wanted to buy books. She wanted, because, she had her own little library in her room. But it was just like, wow, I saw this change in her. So if this worked for her, how many other people can this work for?
Correct.
Because she wasn't stressing about, this and that. She was still in pain, but she wasn't talking about it. She was talking about the characters in the book.
Right.
She was talking about the next book. So I saw this, and I was like, Happy Reading was born.
Wow. So that's where the concept came from. And that is an interesting story because, again, yes, when we're going through whatever we're going through, whether it's health, whether it's relationships, whether it's financial, whether it's job, whatever it is, we do tend to focus on whatever the issue is. And what I heard you say was, you took the focus off of the pain and now put your mind on something else, which was the books, and you started feeling a little bit better.
Yes.
The research supports exactly what you just said. That if you can take your mind off of whatever the situation is and focus on something else, you will have that mood shift and start feeling better. But you know what I found, Linda? That's a hard sell. That's a hard sell for people to really understand. Stop focusing on the problem.
Yes, exactly.
It's a hard sell.
So it was like, I just kept making sure I had a book with me.
Right.
Making sure she saw it. To see if she would catch on. Because other things she didn't want to do. Because at the time, she's old. She was our older sister.
Right.
She want to do what she want to do. She won't listen to us.
Right.
At the time, So you're trying to encourage someone who's normally the leader.
Right.
And now is being taken care of.
Right.
So you're trying to help her embrace some things so that, we wanted her to have more fun, more, increase her energy.
Wow.
Just get that laugh back. Just get those other things back. That way she want to do other things.
Well, I'm glad to hear. I am sitting here thrilled to hear that was done through reading and through books.
Yes.
I really am. And so we're down to the last 8 minutes or so, and what I do is I shut the mic off and you all have the opportunity to promote. I mean, you can say anything you want with the exception of a dollar amount. That's the only thing you can't say, and of course, you can't curse or anything, but, with the exception of a dollar amount, you can shout out, you can give contact information, websites, telephone numbers, any folks you want to shout out. Pretty much, for the most part, the next few minutes is yours to do whatever you want to do, and I'm not going to say a word, and you just let me know when you're done, and at that point, we close out and we're pretty much done for the morning. So I thank you so much for rising with me this morning. Like I said, this is not just about me and Linda's passion. I hope that's not what folks took this as, but reading will change your life forever. All right. The ability to do it, to comprehend, to decode, your fluency with it, all of that coming together, it will change. And in today's time where everything comes at us in written word, whether it's a sign or whether it's something that we have to do online or whether it's, directions or whatever it is we got, it comes through words, and you need to be able to read and comprehend, and not only be able to read it, but be able to do it quickly.
Yes. At a fast pace.
Yes. So I'm going to shut the mic off. This is your opportunity to promote anything with the exception of a dollar amount. It's yours. Go.
All right. Well, I'm thankful to everyone who's joined in and listened in. So here's how you can work with me. I hope you have your pen and paper ready. So the first way you can work with me is happyreadingllc.com, where you can book a discovery call and we can talk about your needs and how I can help you. Once again, that's happyreadingllc.com. You can connect with me on Facebook. I'm Linda Miller on Facebook. Instagram, I am Linda Miller. Once again, Instagram, I am Linda Miller. You can find me on LinkedIn as Linda Miller. You can go over to YouTube. Linda Miller Reads. The book club is Avid Readers Unite Book Club on Facebook. Once again, Avid Readers Unite Book Club on Facebook. You can also join my Facebook group, Happy Reading Community, where we take a deeper dive into reading your way to health. And I think that is about it. So hopefully that you'll contact me, connect with me, and book your call. I look forward to seeing and hearing from you.
All right. Well, again, Linda, thank you so much for joining us and rising early. Again, this won't be the last time because periodically folks come back and, they always have an open invite. Matter of fact, many of my guests that I'm scheduling so far throughout the first part of the year have been guests that's been on the show years ago. And they said, wow, you're still on the air? Like, we'd love to come back on. So I was like, we have no problem with you coming back. I wish you much success. I think you're doing a great work in terms of getting people, because, we're always talking about at our church about making life better for others. Certainly teaching somebody how to read is making life better for them. All right. So with that being said, have a wonderfully blessed day. And, if I come out tomorrow, or if you're out tomorrow, I happen to see you, or if not, I'll see you online.
Okay, will do. Thank you so much, Mark. Talk to you later.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.